My name is Mary Crumpler and I'd like to welcome you to the Lone Star Flamingo. We are going to cook a couple of things today. We're going to do a burrito wrap, low fat, and we're also going to make sopapillas. I collect aprons, and this one I'm going to use today is one that my daughter in Corpus Christi, Jennifer, made for me. She's talented, she can sew, so I'll wear that in honor of hers. Maybe she'll watch the show now.
Come here, Mary, let me tie it for you.
Yeah, Geraldine's going to have to tie it because I'm not coordinated enough. Hello, I'm Mary Crumpler. Join me here on Local TV 99 for Cooking with the Lone Star Flamingo. We will show you some easy, fun recipes that the whole family will enjoy from my cookbook, The Lone Star Flamingo. So we will see you here in my kitchen for home cooking with me, Mary Crumpler, brought to you by these fine sponsors. The first thing we're going to take today is work on the fajita meat. And this is a recipe that's real good for someone who's entertaining, having a big party, or a big family like she does. It's great because you can do this one step ahead. Now, last night while you all were at bed at home, I put a roast beef with the seasonings, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But this is going to be fajita meat that's been cooking for 3 hours. And as you can see, if you've not done this before, the white is grease. And I always like to skim this off, and it takes calories off. Do like this, and just kind of like ice on a swimming pool. Or how about ice on a creek? This is what the meat looks like. This is a beef roast, and I'll show that in just a minute. And the broth, don't throw the broth away, please. That gives flavoring. And I want to mention something. The reason I did this overnight was one time I cooked this the day of. Have you ever tried to shred meat with a cooker that's 320 degrees? It's hot. The broth's hot, it burns your fingers. This way, it's cool. The grease is separated off of it. And if you're a busy housewife, there's no way you can do all this in one day. So this can be done the night before, and then it's real easy the rest of the time.
If you noticed, I took the fat portions off of the roast and set them aside. That helps to keep it leaner.
Yep. And get rid of that. It's really funny, my brother, who lives in Tulsa, is, when I was growing up, he used to make fun of me taking the fat off until he knew about cholesterol. I got the last laugh. His cholesterol is higher than mine. And just leave it for a minute. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next step, which is seasoning the fajita meat. She's going to shred it, which doesn't really take that long. And there's 1.5 pounds roast and 1 pound of pork. And I use pork chops, and it's very lean. There's really not much fat in that. I've already measured the butter. There's 3 tablespoons of butter in the pan, and I'm going to smash the garlic. Main thing is you want to get the garlic into the pan and kind of saute it a little bit. And I'll show you what we do next. But you want to kind of saute the garlic. You're supposed to do it about 5 minutes, but if you're short of time, I have been known to kind of skip it a little bit. But what you're doing is you're releasing as much of the flavor as you can. And that's on about medium-high heat. Be careful, don't walk away from this, because butter, if you don't watch it, it will burn, and then you have to start all over again. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and pour the spices in. And in the recipe book, if you're following my Lone Star cookbook, you know that there's garlic butter, there's cumin, and cumin seed is kind of ground up seeds. And if you smell it, oh yeah, it smells like chili. And this is 26min50sec spices, and they're really good. So, I also use chili powder, measurements are in the book, pepper, a little bit of salt, and if you were good remembers, you know that you take it easy on the salt because it's pretty concentrated.
Ready, Mary?
Yep.
Dump them all in.
1, 2, 3. No, I don't want to dump it all in. I do that on purpose a lot. Now you see how she's changing the color a little bit? Remember that broth that came out of the roaster? We're going to use it in a minute. We're strictly using it for flavor. And I have been actually used more than 1 cup. And I'll show you in a minute what I'm talking about. It smells like tamales. And this is actually a recipe I'm showing you that's what is used in tamales. When you live in Texas, you have to know how to make tamales. But this is a little bit lower fat. Yeah, just go ahead and start.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm. Now what we're trying to do is let the meat absorb the juice. I've always said about 30 minutes. And see, this is to the point now where it can be frozen or put in the ice box. And you don't have to fiddle with all this mess tomorrow. You just pull it out of the ice box. Now I'm going to stop for just a minute. And what I'm going to do is show you what I did last night. Okay, I'm going to take about a half of a pound of pork. And usually I like to use these because this pork is very lean. It's got some fat, but very little fat. And so it's easy to cut up too. And usually you can find one that's like a ½ pound and it's easy to use. So I just lay that in there. Don't have to do anything to prep the kitchen. And here I have let's
get ready to wrestle!
Sirloin round tip roast. And usually I go by the meat. I don't want no fat lines, but I want to use the fat that's marbled a little bit. The marbling is good, adds to the flavor. If you get a piece of meat that's solid and it looks like it's healthy, it's going to be tough and it'll have to go longer. So that beef roast will be fine. I've used both. I will have to tell you something funny. Last night when I was cooking this, I put it in and I set it for 2.5 hours. I opened it up and it was not done. It was tough as a rubber band. I don't know what steak the beef ran across, but I listed it in my cookbook. Sometimes that happens. So the only thing I did was put the lid back in. I bumped it up to 350 for about 30 minutes and that took care of it. The vinegar that's used in here is actually a tenderizer. And I'm not really going to measure too much, but all you have to do is add about a tablespoon of vinegar. Put this over. And then, well, I better check my measurements. I have to cook by my book. There's a gun.
Okay.
Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, 1 teaspoon of salt. This is very forgiving. You don't have to be too exact. I'm going to stop at that because it is concentrated.
Oh, we need a tablespoon of vinegar.
I did that already.
You got the vinegar in
1
there?
teaspoon of salt. I've done that. And then half
Half a teaspoon of pepper.
I can't read. Pepper. Very simple. I mean, you don't do anything for this. And the good thing, it cooks about 2.5 to 3 hours, so you have time to put your kids to bed, give them a bath, which I've done. About a half teaspoon of pepper.
4 cups of chicken
4
broth.
cups of chicken broth, which is one of these boxes, these 4 cups, 32
And it's
ounces.
splashing on you, Mary.
That's why I wear an apron. Actually, I'm going to have to ditch this because it's kind of dangerous in the kitchen. Just a minute. There. Sorry, folks. I don't want to catch it on fire or spill it. Okay. That's what it looks like. Now the broth is what you saw coming off of it, and it really seasons it and gives it a good flavor. And you have to cover the roaster because you don't want to let it dry up. It's ready to go. And I'm going to put it 320 degrees and start the oven. There we go. Voila. That's what I did the night before. But can you see that all of that has absorbed the steam as the water has come off. And now the flavor and the spices are in the meat and not in the pan, which is perfect. Now they say to go 30 minutes, but to do 30 minutes you have to add, if it goes dry and you think, oh gosh, we'll add more broth, you want to go 30 minutes, but you don't need to. Bonnie, come here, Bonnie. You want to taste it? You like it? You want some more? He's licking my fingers. Bonnie's partial to Mexican food. But pass the Bonnie test. There you go. And I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. Did you like that, Bonnie? It's all basically ready to go. By the way, I want to give you a little cue before we get going. You see that little avocado? This seed inside the guacamole keeps it from turning brown. Anytime you're working with avocados and you're worried about having black avocado stuff, you can take a fresh seed, drop it in the middle, and put a paper towel over it, and it does not, see how these have not turned? I think it's the fumes from the seed, but it's really slick. She's going to cut the avocado in half. I don't use sharp knives around. It's not good. Twist at the top. Okay, now I want to show you how to get this seed out. If you take the knife and just kind of hit it, you don't watch your fingers, twist it and pull it out, and the seed comes on. Save the seed because that will keep your avocados from turning. You don't have to add lemon juice, anything like that. And she's going to show you 2 ways to get your avocados out. You can take a spoon, go under the skin. That's pretty heavy. Now if you have one that's not...
Pop right out. There's the empty
So you've
shell.
got one done. Now I'm going to show you a second way. You can take a knife.
That I'm not as good at doing. And
You can take a knife.
You slice. You do your little slices.
Slices like I did around the bowl. Don't get energetic and go through the skin and into your hand. Okay, now watch what happens when she pulls back the 2 backs. It's a miracle. You can do either way. If you need pretty little slices, this is how you get it out. And fan it.
All right, there you go.
And then you can fan it and have perfect little slices. That's my way. Geraldine's, this is Geraldine's way, which both work. It's like a deck of cards. Where's the ace?
I don't know.
I like to do this so the lettuce stays together. Well, you can build it any way you want to. There's no right way or wrong way.
We use the red and the yellow tomatoes just for color.
Make it special. Honestly, I would make a bar out of this and let them have at it. And it doesn't really take much. This recipe makes a ton of them. If you have 18 adults, you could probably serve this meal. Okay, I think I'm gonna put lettuce, a little bit of lettuce, and I'll take some cheese. You build it yourself, you make your own. And if you have hot-natured people, you might want to throw in a few jalapenos. Of course, if you're in Paris, Texas, paste pecani sauce. We make it here. So I'm going to put some pecani sauce, and this is just a medium. And there again, you can add as much as you want later. And you could even at this point, if you wanted to, lay it in there to make it look pretty. Yeah, you just tuck in the sides.
Both sides.
And then roll it up like you do a normal burrito.
And there you go.
I really would divide it in 2 parts, just
It's easy.
because some
Yes.
people can't eat it. But you see? That's good.
It is.
It's very easy to eat. Great for kids, not too sloppy. But that guacamole holds it together, kind of like glue. That's pretty good. Doing good, Geraldine. Okay. Now, we're going to take a little short break, and we're going to eat the rest of the burrito. And we're going to have our little elves come out of the closet and clean this mess up. And when we come back, we're going to make sopapillas. And you're really going to like it. And it's fattening. Okay, see you in a minute. Hello, I'm Mary Crumpler. Join me here on Local TV 99 for Cooking with the Lone Star Flamingo. We will show you some easy, fun recipes that the whole family will enjoy from my cookbook, The Lone Star Flamingo. So we will see you here in my kitchen for home cooking with me, Mary Crumpler, brought to you by these fine sponsors.
Cooking with the Lone Star Flamingo, starring Mary Crumpler, is in part brought to you by Gary and Trudy Hilliard.
Welcome back to the Lone Star Flamingo. I hope you enjoyed our commercials. And we just finished making a fajita wrap, and that's a cookbook recipe in my cookbook. And we're going to make sopapillas now. We went ahead and made the dough and let it rest for an hour. So Geraldine's going to first, is very simple. And this is, I will have to say this is not my recipe, but it's good. 1 3/4 cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 1 teaspoon of salt. There you go. Thank you. And 1 tablespoon of sugar. Should be right there. Yep. If you want this recipe, it'll be available at the Quality Frame Shop, where my cookbooks are sold. Okay. Now you've got the sugar in?
Right.
Okay. Now
I need a spoon, Mary.
Huh?
I need a spoon
Why?
to stir.
God darn, you're gonna stir.
Okay.
Okay. And what she's gonna do after she's stirred up, she's gonna take the 2 tablespoons of butter. And we let it, about 10 minutes rest to kind of not be so hard. And
Reaches
she's
room
taking,
temperature.
Huh?
Reaches room temperature.
Yeah. And she's taking a blender and she's getting the butter mixed in the flour. It'll end up looking like coarse cornmeal. We'll show you in just a minute.
How much milk, Mary?
2/3.
2/3. Okay, let's try the third. 1.
And while she's doing that, while she's blending it into the batter, we went ahead and made the cinnamon sugar. It's very simple. It's like a half a cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and you can really put as much as you want. If you'd like a lot of cinnamon, you might want to add a little bit, but it doesn't take too much. And while she's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and heat the grease. Now this is something I really want to warn you about. This part, I'd put your kids up when you're doing it. And you sure want to stay away from this. They can take a cord and drag it off, and oh, you do not want hot grease. Tell them you'll bring them out and enjoy it later.
Okay, I've mixed the ingredients here, and now I have to knead it for about a minute. Try and work the extra flour into the ball.
And this is not like roll dough. There's no yeast in it.
There's no rising. And it will set aside for an hour to rest.
If you ever want to know if the oil's hot enough, and it probably isn't yet, but you can take a piece of dough and drop it in and watch it. When it comes up to the surface and starts boiling, then it's fine. But you can tell it's not hot enough sitting on the bottom. But it won't be long.
Okay, we have a ball of dough that has rested for an hour. Now I'm going to take some flour and roll it out on my parchment paper.
They call dusting the flour. You don't have to use parchment paper, but it helps. Okay.
I'll dust my rolling pin.
The dough is starting to come up to the top. If you can see, it's right there. And the bubbles make it rise to the surface.
You want to roll the dough out to about 1/8 of an inch thick.
You have to use a sharp knife. If you use a knife like this, that's a dull knife, obviously. This is a dinner knife. And so you're not going to get a clean cut. And it's got to seal the edges. The dough is starting to come up to the top. So it's bubbling and rising, which means that's done. So Geraldine's going to cut these squares up.
Is that about right, Mary?
Cut this off. Every edge has to be cut. So if
right.
you're on a circle,
I cut that edge off, and now I'm going to cut this edge off.
yeah.
And there we go. There's your one cut, Mary.
Okay, now I'm going to do a tester. Now when it comes to the surface, it should be done. Some pop a lot, some don't. And if it puffs, I'll put it into the sugar. You better not embarrass me and be flat. Now sometimes I may even turn it over because it may need the grease on the bottom. You never know. Now can you hear it crackling? When you hear it snapping like it is, it's a good idea to not let the grease get so hot. Oh, and if you have scraps left over, I know you think, oh, I'll just wad them up and use them. It doesn't work. You'll end up with flat. And sometimes I'll even splash some of the hot grease so that it'll puff the dough up. Like my mother always said, patience is a virtue. Be patient. We may be making Sophia toast. French toast. That's good too with honey. How much film do you have?
No, we got plenty. We're good.
See kind of how it's brown around the edges. You don't want to let it sit until it gets brown. Then you burn them.
And you just take and open it up a little bit, pour that honey right in the middle.
Let's pretend it puffed.
It
They're
puffed.
still good to eat.
It puffed, Mary, just not a lot.
Wanted mine to puff.
I know.
That's still good. It's not puffing in the middle.
Very good.
Well, folks, I think you're going to have flat sopapillas. We made fajita wraps, and they turned out just fine. And we have flat sopapillas. But they are good, and they will work, and we're going to eat them in a minute. The recipes will be on the show, and I'll have it available for you if you'd like to have it. Have a good evening, and we've had fun doing it. Come back and see us. Good night.